Hi everyone, Sybil again. Hope everyone's staying safe and well. I wanted to thank you all, first of all, for all of the comments and suggestions on the last video. Some were very helpful, and one was to change the background, so here's a different background right back there. And someone else suggested that I shoot not a selfie, which I'm doing right now, but a more high definition image. Can you imagine that I might want a high definition image of this? No. So anyway, I'm back on the selfie. And this time, since I know some of you had problems finding the links to the Fred Astaire and Gene Kelly video, I thought I would try and experiment with this little mini lesson in trying to actually connect the videos that I'm talking about to this video itself, the one you're looking at, so you won't have to actually search for them below, or if you're watching on a PC or an iPhone or a tablet of some sort, you might not see those words show more, which tell you where to go for the links. So this will be a mini lecture on one of my favorite kinds of films, and those are films that are self-reflexive. So let's call this cinema self-reflexivity. Self-reflexive films are films that actually reflect back on themselves as a medium, call attention to the fact that you're watching a film. In theater, it was used by Bertolt Brecht, for example, who would often have characters step to the edge of the stage and break the fourth wall and speak to the audience. And in films, you sometimes have that. That's the most obvious kind of cinema self-reflexivity, the kind where a character will speak directly to the audience, such as this clip that I'm going to attach right now from Woody Allen's Annie Hall.
What do you do when you get stuck on a movie line with a guy like this behind you?
Wait a minute, why can't I give my opinion? It's a free country.
He can give you. Do you have to give it so loud? I mean, aren't you ashamed to pontificate like that? And the funny part of it is, Marshall McLuhan, you don't know anything about Marshall McLuhan's work.
Really? I happen to teach a class at Columbia called TV, Media, and Culture. So I think that my insights into Mr. McLuhan, well, have a great deal of validity.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Well, that's funny because I happen to have Mr. McLuhan right here. So yeah, just let me come over here a second.
Oh,
Tell him.
I heard what you were saying. You know nothing of my work. You mean my whole fallacy is wrong. How you ever got to teach a course in anything is totally amazing.
Boy, if life were only like this.
That was a bit harsh on film professors, don't you think? So, I hope you got that. And there are other examples, of course, in films. Ferris Bueller's Day Off, he speaks directly to the camera. Some of Mel Brooks's films, Blazing Saddles or Spaceballs, some of the others, I'm sure you can name them. Even a voiceover narration is a kind of self-reflexivity. Where is that voice coming from? In Sunset Boulevard, for example, it's the most bizarre kind of voiceover narration. You have a dead narrator. He's already dead at the beginning of the film, floating in a swimming pool. So it can be unusual as a technique. I guess asides in Shakespeare also would be examples of self-reflexivity. But the three actual kinds, other than that kind, which is fairly obvious and not difficult to point out, are self-reflexive films that fall into one of these three categories. Category one, would be movies about movies, or movies about movie making, or movies about the movie industry. And one of my favorite movies about movies is an Italian film made in 1988 called Cinema Paradiso. I recommend it. You can stream it almost anywhere. And it also has a fabulous score by Ennio Morricone, who scored about 400 films in his lifetime. Anyway, it's about a town in Sicily in which the movie theater is the only and much beloved entertainment available to the townspeople. And in this scene, the people outside are protesting because the movie theater is about to close for the night they've missed the last show and they really want to see it. So the wonderful projectionist Alfredo has a terrific idea, and he tells his little friend Salvatore, who has become his assistant, that he has a way of figuring out how to show the folks of the town this particular show, even though they can't get into the theater. Sort of like us these days. We don't go to the movies either right now, but luckily we have a few other options than the townspeople in this particular scene.
Alfredo, pensaci tu! Ma che cosa ci posso fare io?
Aspettare giorni, poi ci hanno mandato via!
Una folla non pensa, non sa quello che fa. Questo lo diceva il grande Spincertrase in furia. Allora, che dici? Ce lo facciamo vedere il film a queste povere pazze?
Magari, ma come? Si può fare?
Vedo che voi non volete credere alle mie parole, ma ai vostri occhi dovrete credere. E ora alza le chiappe da quel dannato sgabello.
Non sapete che è gelosissimo, che esasperato, che armato.
Attento. Abracadabra. Guarda dall'altra parte. Affacciati alla finestra e guarda, ragazza.
Alfredo è bellissimo!
Dalia, Dalia! Un cinematografo!
Bravo Alfredo!
Grazie, Alfredo, grazie!
Ma che succede? Ma che vuoi? Quale un cinema? Vai da fare in dopo!
Alfredo, non si sente niente!
Gli facciamo quest'altro regalo?
Sì, sì!
Okay, so those are movies about movies. And the second type of self-reflexive film that I wanted to talk a little bit about is the kind of movie that explores the activity of watching films, what it's like. And as we all know, I'm sure, the very act of watching a movie is a voyeuristic activity, in that the audience seeks pleasure in looking at the lives of other people, usually without impunity. So, or I say usually without impunity, because that, of course, doesn't include the films of Alfred Hitchcock, where he sometimes punishes not only the characters in the film, but the audience as well for voyeuristic looking. So here's a little example from Rear Window, which is about a character who is actually tied to a wheelchair temporarily because of a broken leg and a cast, and yet he is able to voyeuristically peer in on the lives of others through the use of a telephoto lens. He's a journalistic photographer. Of course, that's played by James Stewart. Rear Window, Alfred Hitchcock. just a little moment from that film. So here's James Stewart. He's been kind of looking across the way since he can't do very much else, kind of like us these days. And he decides that he'd rather get a better point of view. So he remembers he has a telephoto lens and he's going to attach that to his camera so they can see things more intimately. He already suspects that this man across the way, played by Raymond Burr, you remember him from Perry Mason days, has done something nefarious, well, horrible actually. He suspects him of having killed his wife. So now he gets this telephoto lens, and look what Hitchcock does here. It's really very interesting. You have to wait for it for a couple of seconds as he attaches the lens. Hang on, it's coming up, and here it is, a point of view shot. And what's this guy doing? I don't know if you can tell, but he's wrapping up these instruments, a machete, a saw, and this kind of validates what James Stewart's character has suspected all along. So now we, the viewer, and Stewart, the character, are implicated in what Hitchcock considers to be the questionably moral act of voyeurism, which we do all the time when we're watching movies. Now, he can't do very much to help his girlfriend, Grace Kelly, later on in the film, who is in danger because of his own, I guess I could call it moral and physical impotence. He's in a cast, he can't physically move, and there's a certain degree of moral impotence that Hitchcock is punishing him for his voyeuristic activities. But the one film by Hitchcock that I think is the most interesting in terms of voyeurism is Psycho, which not only explores the experience of watching films, the voyeuristic experience, but actually implicates the viewer, implicates us in the act, and ultimately punishes us for doing it, for enjoying it, by making us watch the shower scene. Which, don't get nervous, I'm not going to show you. If you want to watch the shower scene, you can go on YouTube and type in Psycho shower scene and watch it again. But it is a fascinating scene that, because of its stylization, doesn't really allow us to turn away from it in the same way that we would be able to turn away from a bloody, gory, disgusting horror movie scene where somebody is being killed with a knife. So the quick cuts, the montage effect, there are about 72 different cuts or shots in that particular sequence, which lasts only a few seconds, 50 or so seconds, really makes it difficult to look away, and so your eyes are riveted to the screen. That's Hitchcock's punishment. But let's take a look at the very first scene of Psycho, which kind of communicates that this is going to be a film about voyeurism. So here's the opening scene of Psycho. Starts with a wide shot of the city, and the camera just appears to be moving through the city, Phoenix, Arizona, and which is not that important. But now the camera takes a slightly different position. As it tells us more about the time and place, it gets closer and closer to what appears to be a destination. And this destination is a hotel, and not a very nice hotel, perhaps even a seedy hotel, and a window slightly open. Maybe there's something going on in here. Well, what are things that happen during lunchtime at seedy hotels? Perhaps a love affair? Ah, guess what? It is a love affair.
You didn't eat your lunch, did you?
I better get back to the office. These extended lunch hours give my boss excess acid.
Why don't you call your boss and tell him you're taking the rest of the afternoon off?
So here's a later scene from Psycho, probably the mother of all voyeuristic scenes, in which Norman decides he wants to see what Marion is doing in the room he's rented to her. So he goes to the wall. We've already sensed his rather uncomfortable sexual attraction to Marion in the earlier scene. And here he removes a painting. You'll see him do it in a couple of seconds. It's a famous painting, actually, of a rape that prepares us for what we're about to see, or what we think we're going to see, which is not only a murder, but a metaphorical rape, lots of male and female imagery. And just as he did in Rear Window with the subjective shot from James Stewart's point of view, Hitchcock ties us here to Norman's point of view with another subjective shot. And because we've participated in looking at Marion as she is disrobing, we are now morally implicated in the pleasurable act of viewing, or voyeurism, with Norman. So once again, Hitchcock reminds us that voyeurism, or the pleasurable act of looking, is not without its consequences, which in this case is having to watch the shower scene. And finally, the third category of cinema self-reflexivity are movies about what movies actually are as a medium. That is, the essence or nature of cinema, which of course is about truth and illusion. So to give a final example, a film like Singin' in the Rain, a film I've mentioned, which is a movie about movie history, that is the coming of sound, is also a movie about truth and illusion, the essence of cinema. And unfortunately, we don't have time to look at all of the examples in the film. You can, of course, stream it. Jeez, I just noticed how long my hair is getting. What's everybody doing about their hair? Anyway, here's a scene where Lena Lamont, who's played by Jean Hagen, the wonderful Jean Hagen with the high-pitched voice that doesn't work well in sound movies, is pushed out on stage to lip-sync a film that Debbie Reynolds is singing behind the curtain. And so the truth is what we are experiencing as we watch Debbie Reynolds behind the curtain, whereas the illusion is Lena Lamont supposedly singing that song herself. And here's how that scene works.
She'll be back of the curtain singing, and I'll be out in front doing, like in the picture?
That's right.
What?
You gotta do it, Kathy. This thing is too big.
Of course she's got to do it. She's got a 5-year contract with me. Get over to that microphone, Selden.
You heard of Kathy. Now do it.
I'll do it, Don. I'll do it, but I never want to see you again, on or off the screen.
Now, come on, Lena.
What are you going to sing, Miss Lamont?
Singing in the rain. Singing in the rain.
Singing in the Rain. In what key?
A flat. A flat.
In A flat.
I'm singing in the rain, just singing in the rain. What a glorious feeling, I'm happy again. I'm laughing at clouds so dark up above. The sun's in my heart and I'm ready for love. Let the stormy clouds chase everyone from the place. Come on with the rain, I've a smile on my face.
I'll walk down the lane with a happy refrain and singing, just singing in the
rain. I'm singing in the rain, just singing in the rain. What a glorious feeling, I'm happy again. I'm laughing at clouds so dark up above.
The sun's in my heart and I'm ready for love. That storm
Ladies and gentlemen, stop that girl. That girl running up the aisle. Stop her. That's the girl whose voice you heard and loved tonight. She's the real star of the picture.
So that's it for now. In the meantime, stay safe, be well, leave some comments, maybe even some hair tips, and be sure to watch some movies.